for the next tournament. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about gear ratio on your bait casters. That's something that I've really changed my perspective on the last couple years after I've started experimenting with the gear ratios that I have on my reels. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about choosing the right gear ratio, right speed reel for the application that you're using your rod for. You know, in the beginning, I really, I had just the basic concept that is the faster reel you had, the better off you were. Give me a reel that's fast, 8-5 to 1, 9-2 to 1, 22 to 3, whatever I could get. The fastest reel I could get, let me bring that bait back to the boat fast as I can, the better off I'm going to be. Well, I've really changed that perspective, okay? I've got 3 different gear ratio reels that I use for just about every application that I come across out there. And I'll tell you a little bit about why I use each gear ratio, why I have the three different speeds that I really like. And those 3 different speeds are my fastest one, just in the reels that I use, the fastest reel. And there's a lot of really fast reels out there, especially when you're talking about bait casters. But my fastest one is a 7-2 to 1. I use that a lot. I also use this is a 6-3 to 1 reel. I use that a lot. And I kind of call this my medium ground, so we're going to call it 7-2 to 1 a fast reel. We're going to call it a 6-3 to 1 a medium pace, and I also keep one slow reel in my lineup too. This is a 5-3 to 1. So I'll talk to you a little bit about why I use all 3 of these, and I think after I talk about it a little bit, it'll make sense to why maybe you want to rethink always using the fastest reel you can, because that's kind of what's driving the reel market right now, is the fastest reel you can use. We'll start with this 5-3 to 1 reel. All right, I used to hate them. Used to hate a slow reel. I thought it was totally useless. Back in the day when I used to have those little Shimano's with the real small handle, they were all really slow reels and kind of hard to use. But I've found their place in my toolbox for them. And it's definitely a real gear ratio reel that you need to have in your tackle box. Anytime I'm using a moving bait, especially one that's very erratic, I'll give you an example. A chatterbait, for instance. A chatterbait, and I don't always use the 5-3 to 1 with a chatterbait. When I want to really crawl that chatterbait, trying to reach a little deeper grass, I want to get my bait down a little bit deeper. On a spinner bait, not always, but a lot of times on a spinner bait. If I'm throwing a swim bait, if I'm throwing a square bill crankbait, really with crankbaits is the one that you're really going to do well with if you slow down your gear ratio reel. I'll tell you why. There's so many advantages once I used a slow gear ratio reel. Before, I had the concept that I'll throw it out there. If I need to slow down, I can always slow down, but it's harder to speed up. I found out I was lying to myself. Occasionally, when you're not paying attention to yourself, you get anxious out there, you're not getting bitten in a little while, you speed up. You don't realize you're doing it, but you're speeding up. You take that gear ratio, slower gear ratio reel, you don't have to think about and make yourself slow down. You can keep the same pace. When you're nervous out there, it's going to take up that slack for you. So a slower gear ratio reel with the square bill crankbait is one advantage. You're not going to hang up as much. Okay, that bait is just going to crawl over wood structure and not snag. It's not going to ricochet, turn sideways, and the hook hang in the wood. It's going to let, especially like an Echo 175 from Rattle Trap. It's a really wide, aggressive crankbait. It's doing everything for you. And if you use a little bit slow gear ratio reel, that's going to let that energy of the bait really take that bait down. When you rush that bait, it really doesn't do what it's intended to do. A chatterbait is the same way. When you rush a chatterbait, it honestly doesn't, the wobble tightens up a little bit, and it honestly just doesn't do what it's designed to do, just slowing down just a little bit. Now, if I'm fishing a little bit shallower and I need to keep the bait coming, or if I'm ripping out of grass, I might adjust my gear ratio for that. But the standard use for those 2 baits, I'm going to slow it down. You're going to hang less. The bait is going to do exactly what it's supposed to do, and it's going to get down a little bit deeper, which a lot of times is the difference between getting bit and not getting bit. You're going to keep fish hooked a little bit better, especially with treble hook baits. When you go out there and make a long cast, you got him coming to you, you're rushing that bait. You're just pulling him along, you're horsing that 5-3-1, you're kind of finessing that fish back to the boat. Doesn't mean you're not gonna always hang up when you go slower. It doesn't mean you're always gonna catch every fish when you go slower. But I bet you'll catch one or two more. So my second one is the 6-3-1, and this is the one that I like for just about everything. You can maybe slow down a 6-3-1 reel, or you can speed up fairly well with the 6-3-1. You can use this just about for everything. I can flip with this. I can crankbait, square bill, swim bait, whatever I need to do. This is a good middle ground. So if you're looking, you can't buy all 3 reels at one time. I personally would suggest that you get a 6-3-1 gear ratio reel. You can speed up if you need to, you can slow down, and it's a good medium pace reel to do just about everything and not rush the bait and not work yourself to death if you need to work the bait really fast. So the 6-3-1 is probably going to be the middle ground if you don't want to invest in all 3 gear ratios. So moving up into the faster gear ratio reels, the 7-1-1s, 7-2-1s, the 8-5-1s. There's a lot of really fast reels out there right now, and that's good as well. I like the slow ones and I really like the fast ones. And I'm going to tell you, it's probably going to surprise you where I like to use the fast gear ratio reels. When I'm flipping, okay, especially in shallow water, fish are notorious. You set the hook, you rear back on him, he comes running at you. Has nowhere else to go when you're in shallow water. Most of the time you set the hook, they run straight at you, and you've got to be able to catch up with that fish. I heard Gerald Swindler call it the pencil sharpener. You got a pencil sharpener down on him and get him coming to the boat so you can keep him pegged. When you're throwing a Texas rig, if you're long casting out there, a big shaky head on a river ledge, or if you're Texas rig, anything you're dragging, I actually like to use a little faster reel, because when I set the hook, I can really do a lot of penetration with my reel as opposed to my rod. So I'm learning that I like a faster gear ratio reel on Texas rig, or when I'm working a bait actually slow. That's the oxymoron there, but I promise you your hookup ratio is going to be a little bit better when you use a faster gear ratio reel. So remember that. Fishing shallow, if you're making very long casts, faster gear ratio reel, that's going to help you hook up a little bit better. Another way I like to use it, if I don't want to work myself to death, if I'm parallel and rip wrap and I want to cover a lot of water, I might tie my square bill to a little bit faster reel, because the boat is moving, okay, but the bait is coming toward me, so I need something to counteract the boat moving towards my bait as I'm trying to bring it back to the boat. So those are things you need to think about. If you're parallel and rip wrap, if you're going to be moving faster, if you're going to pick up the pace during a practice for one of your tournaments, maybe you do need to use the faster gear ratio reel. So think about what you're actually doing with your baits when you pick your reels as well. If I'm throwing a top water, a walking bait, we throw a lot of top water offshore and we're working really fast. 7-2-1 is going to be the way to go. If I'm swimming a jig over grass, I need to keep that bait up high. I'm going to use a 7-1-1, 7-2-1. The fastest reel I've got in my box is the one I'm going to use. So that gives you a little insight on how I like to use the different gear ratio reels and why I think it's very important to have a wide variety of gear ratios so you can work your baits more efficiently and get more fish in the boat.